Hello and welcome back to Middara. Today we're not really playing Middara as we much setting it up in story-wise. So, the last part we did making the grade, and then we had to stop and train. And where did, oh, there it is. So, I have this all nice and prepared. And if you can see the lines, that's because my good old toddler decided he wanted to add in some nooks and crannies, so he did. So, we have 339 gold to spend and 5 experience points, but we still can only buy one item, buy one discipline. So, we are going to start with Nightingale. Now, Nightingale, she was like a half melee, half magic, but we're changing that. Her ability Ambitious, all other allies gain +1 SP, Nightingale gets 2 SP. So I thought, that'd be really good for like at least one good attack, where we just have all just attack at once. So I was like, how about instead of having how they included, we'll make her dual wield like Zeke. But Zeke is going to be different now, because I like to go like, yeah, this character does this, but I want to do a little bit of this. So, instead, she was just going to do dual wield, but I decided to go with backstab. Now, we have a short sword for her, and a Katar. Katar has a combo light, which which means she can backstab. Basically, if there's an enemy, and there's 2 ends right here and here, we get a flanking bonus, and if she has backstab, she'll get a damage bonus of 3 damage. Now, I didn't really use the flanking bonus because I didn't really know about it. In fact, I thought backstab was some sort of subterfuge ability, but it's not. It's an item ability. So, its passive is also 2 armor piercing, so she can get 2 armor. In her short sword, I can roll diagonally, I can re-roll one of the combat dice, and I can turn this into a white. Now, I could have had 2 Katars, but backstab wouldn't actually stack. Well, that's what I read online anyway. So we're not going to have backstab stab. So I'm like, okay, let's get sword so we can re-roll 1 dice and move around a little bit. So that'll be helpful. And as for her discipline that she gets, I got follow through. When determining damage, you may spend SP. For each SP you spend, you add 2 physical damage. So that is great. So if I ever had that one ability, which I want to get later, called the Marshal, if you have 2 weapons, you can do a free attack. If I had 5 SP and do that free attack, this basically means I get 10 free damage if I use all of them. And I can exhaust it. If I have 2 light weapons, which I do, while flanking, this attack ignores armor. This is I can only do it once, but basically, instead of the armor piercing, all of it gets rid of armor. So, let's go ahead and get rid of. That costs 3 XP, so now she has 2 XP left. Now, this time's 18 plus 18. I'm gonna actually let's start off the music because we're in the town, basically. There we go. I don't want to use my mind real quick, so that costs 36. So 339 take away 36. 300. 339 take away 36 is not 300. Whoops. It's 303. Now, we still have more items, but I want to get the major things out of the way first. So, let's get her out of the way. Let's go ahead and do Zeke. Zeke, a nimble fighter. Basic, once per turn, he can re-roll his dodge. But last time, they didn't really give us any dodge, did they? So I was like, you know what? Let's make him into a dodge fighter. Basically, he's gonna be our dodge tank. So I was like, okay, what type of items we can have for shields and whatnot? So first thing I got is a medium shield. I combo that with melee, which is a hand axe. It gets white, so it's going to attack white on white. Medium also gets 1 armor. I can exhaust this for free, for a free counter. So if you dodge, he'll dodge and attack back. Hand axe. Now there was either hand axe or hand mace. And the hand mace was just like re-roll your counter, and this one is after making an attack, you make the attack misses, make an attack roll. So basically, if I miss, I get to re-attack again. And I thought hand axe would be better that way, and I can throw it for free. I can only do it once per encounter. I'll still keep the hand axe, but it's basically a free throwing knife, which is, as we can already tell before, 3 folded knives are really great. So I was like, okay, what's a good martial ability to dodge? And I saw this. Anticipated attack. It's martial, level 1. When making a dodge, you gain 2 book plus 1 dodge. So, it's either skull, which does nothing, or shields, or books. In any case, since there's always books and shields in here, this will at least make sure we get some sort of dodge in. So, that will cost us 3 XP, so it's 2, and that's 36 again. So 303, take away 36, 267. Let's actually not write that down until we get it. Alright, so we got Zeke, and we got Nightingale. We're still going to get the others, but I wanted to get the major parts first. Then we went ahead and have Rook Lars here. Now, Rook. I was like, there was a lot of things we could do with Rook. He has more HP than everyone. He can have an additional consumable, and he can ignore a little bit of heavy. But I was thinking, what could I do for the HP? And a lot of these cures right here, the cure discipline, where you actually give a little in order to give a little, like Gore Shot, which Nightingale had before. I can take 2 irresistible damage, and I can deal damage equal to the maximum. That's really good. It's not going to be so good right now, but for Rook, he has HP to spend, so I'm going to make him a mage. And with that being said, I gave him a magic staff. So when I cast white now for white damage. Then I can turn the spark. Basically, if I ever fail, we can put an energy on this, and I can spend that energy to add +1 to my rolls for this. Then I can add 1 SP before the target of one of my spells make a conviction check to add addition to the spell, deal extra damage. So I can even do even more extra damage. So this is basically free attack, and this costs me 1 SP to do more damage. So I was like, yeah, that's really good. So, but that's only, so he gets down to 2 XP, but that's only -30. So we got 237 gold. Now, Remy. Remy was a little bit hard to think what to do with her. I already know what I wanted to do with her. I wanted her to be a support and a summoner. Kind of like Yuna from Final Fantasy X. So, she could get anywhere, or go anywhere, basically with her flight, as we saw in the previous ones. So, instead of her being up front, I was like, okay, let's give her a longbow. I have a 6 range, so that's even out of SOI, of enemies. If you haven't made it, basically it's passive. If you haven't made a move action this turn, you attack +1 to attack roll, but you can't make a move. That's fine. And I was like, so there's 2 things in here that I need. I was like, I can get my familiar, a level 1 assemblage, and I'll get Tristan Spirit, which deals damage according to my assemblage, which is fine. But I can also flip it to get rid of an effect. I'll still keep the extra attack, but I was like, what if effects is done? And I was like, I'm really scared of effects, because when Rook got poisoned, that was a lot of damage. So I was like, okay, so we need to be worried about that. So, since, okay, I don't know how much effects is going to affect us, but it basically scares me, so I wanted to do more than just that. So, okay, let's actually not get this just yet. because I'm going to be buying at least 3 magic bombs, which is, well, they'll do it. But I'm also scared because we don't really have any healing, and if we get one hit down, we probably going to need some healing. Even though we might have some consumables, they only last. So I'm going to give her mend first, and then I'm going to level her up later to get that familiar, so she can now heal. It can now get rid of the effect, and the washer is on in case you hear that. All right. So we take away 3 XP. Oop. I put 3 instead of 2. And then we take 30 away from gold. So 207. Alright. Let's go back and start buying the rest of the items we're going to need. Kind of put them on the side. So Nightingale, I decided to give her an occult t-shirt so she can have a dodge, and if he dodges she can counter, and she can have more of a dodge. She's probably going to be in back line, so it might be a little bit hard for her to stay in. And a deflection core. And the reason why I gave her a deflection core is because I want her to basically not get hit by magic spell effects. So yeah, so that's 35 altogether, so we take away 35. 172. Zeke has quite a few things he needed. First thing, another occult t-shirt. That gives him a free dodge, and he gets a +1 to dodge anyway. So that's basically, he needs that occult t-shirt. And I also gave him a defensive core, so he can have another free dodge, so he can dodge multiple people, in case he couldn't. And it gives him an additional little bit of health. So, and this also gives him a little bit of movement. So that's negative 30 as well. 142, we're halfway down. Alright, Remy. I decided to give you the cuirass. Because basically, even though she's going to be far away, it is possible for her to get hit. So, if she ever gets hit by a physical damage, she can at least knock it off. Or if she gets hit by any damage, or armor, I think is still physical. We have to learn about that. But I also gave her a deflection core because she might get hit a lot by magic attacks. It was either the cuirass or the badass leather jacket, but this one is just like help you dodge, but she's not going to be dodging, she's not going to be in front of anything. The occult t-shirt might be better, but I thought, no, let's not do that. Let's give it to these two to dodge. It might be better on her, Nightingale, actually, but I want her to dodge too, and not just with the deflection core. Alright, so that's 40. 100. So we have Rook Lars. Now, nice thing about Rook, we already have a heart box. We don't have to pay for that. I'm keeping him with the heart box, so if he gets overhealed, he can use that to pay for Gore Shot or something. And I'm keeping him with Cuirass, so he so even though he's going to be far behind, it's still better than the badass jacket, which he's not going to have dodge, so there's no point in giving him that. So he got this curse. So that's minus 20. We have 80 points left. Now there was a couple extra things I needed. First, magic bombs. We're definitely buying these. Oh, and we got this Vitality juice box that was in our thing, which I still need to figure it out. And these are also in our consumables, but we do want to buy 3 magic bombs, which is the whole magic bombs in here, I believe. Yeah, I think there's only 3 things of magic bombs. So they're 4 each. 4 times 3 is 12, so we take away 12. 70. Let's put this up here. And we have some items. So I also found some of these accessories. And these accessories they have their own little slot, but the longer you don't buy them, the more they cost. So first things first, I bought too many belts, and this is Zeke, and there's like 30, so I can only buy 2 of these. So with this, Zeke will get a free dodge, and if you dodge and attack deals damage, I can reduce it by 2, so he can still. So it's basically like 2 free dodge tokens almost, but only for physical damage, which I really like, so it's a bit easier for him to counterattack, which is exactly what we want to do. So we have 40. Now I also picked accessories for the rest of the people, but I was like, which one would be better to get? So I have Intermission, Q-Tor for Remy, which any time we roll any dice except the black dice that you or an ally within SOI is, so that's like a free reroll. As a support, that's going to be really good for anyone. I have her with the cloak, which is dodge, and she gains protection, which protection is going to help her against magic, and she's going to have dodge. At least I've read it about it. So I keep forgetting what protection does. And for Rook, I got weapon strips. I can re-equip any time, but that doesn't need. But he also gets a free dodge if I give him this. So I'm not going to give weapon stripes to Rook just yet. So what I want? Do I want more protection for Remy, or more support, or protection for Nightingale, or Remy with more support? And I think we're going to go with Cloak and Nightingale because she's going to be up and at 'em. All right. So that's 30. We're at 10 left. Now, we have, you all test 3, 6, 9, 13. So we can have 13 consumables. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8. We can have 5 more, but then we're not going to have all 5 more. So let's get some. There's also relics, but I didn't want to buy any relics. And I don't have any money to buy relics. They look like they're all 15. So let's buy 2 throwing knives, because these are actually really helpful, and they'll cost us 8. Alright. So we're down. We just used all our gold. We have 2 gold. Two gold left. Alright, sweet. Now, so Remy is our support summoner. Rook is our caster. Zeke is our dodge dodging counter. And Nightingale is our rogue. So, let's go ahead. We did shop and train, and we continue to path to Citizenship, and this is a lot. So I'm going to turn down the music, but we're going to leave it on a little bit. So we're going to turn on the city. I'm going to move the mic a little bit over here. Where is it? There it is. Alright. So you might not hear the music, but I'd rather just be it in the background anyway. Get the heals tokens. Chapter 1, Path to Citizenship. Citizenship. 7 minutes.
Path to Citizenship. Never in her life had Nightingale enjoyed walking out of the Institute of Alinea so much. More than once she caught herself skipping, and she had to slow herself back into a walk. Even so, there was no hiding the pride in her steps. I have to admit, I expected it to be harder, Rook was saying, his voice low as he and the others followed behind her. But I'm not complaining. If the monsters in the wild are going to be anything like that, I'd say we're well prepared. Zeke's contribution to their overall dignity was the absence of a cigarette, though Nightingale caught one palm behind one of his fingers whenever she saw his left hand. "I'm just glad all the studying made a difference," Zeke commented. "I get that we don't age anymore, but it would still suck to have to spend 2 more years in school." As they walked into the courtyard with their fellow students, Nightingale was surprised by just how many people were waiting outside. She noticed that a lot of eyes were on them, and tried not to look too self-conscious. She supposed that when royalty did something like this, everyone paid attention. The crowd outside was mostly made up of the parents and families of hopeful graduates, clapping and embracing their children. Nightingale's old Midaran parents waited just outside the door. Queen Kezia reached her first, crossing the distance in a few quick strides and scooping her into a tight hug. "Nightingale! Mom!" Despite how delicate the queen looked, Nightingale found the hug so tight she had trouble breathing. "Do you have any idea how long it's been since someone scored that well?" Kezia released her, though one hand still lingered on her shoulder. King Balthazar stood on his wife's other side, bright robe fluttering a little in the breeze. He didn't reach out to embrace her as the queen had done, but he did nod with obvious respect. "You are a credit to the family, Nightingale. My hope for your potential was clearly well placed. Of course, your companions deserve equal credit." He looked past her, first to Zeke. "I have come to expect quality from the Zhang house, and you have not disappointed." "Thank you, Your Grace." Zeke bowed, though only briefly. Nightingale got out of the way, gesturing eagerly at the members of their team she didn't know before the test. "Rook Lars, if I'm not mistaken." Balthazar extended a hand to Rook. For all his size, his strength, and confidence, Rook had gone pale and rigid. He could only nod, his mouth hanging open a little. "Your performance is to be commended, young man. I suspect Alinea may come to know your family better in the coming years." "I hardly deserve such praise, my king," Rook said, adding more finesse to the same bow that Zeke had made. "It was an honor to have the opportunity to take the mast alongside your daughter." Balthazar's smile faltered a little as he finally turned to Remy and nodded sternly without addressing her further. Nightingale could see similar concern on Kezia's face, and a brief look of confusion the king and queen shared. Remy squirmed under their look and did an awkward courtesy. "Your Grace," she muttered. Balthazar forced a smile and then cleared his throat, holding his arm out. Queen Kezia nodded and stepped forward. She offered each of them an envelope. "The graduation ceremony is tonight in Alinea proper. I look forward to seeing each of you there." The king and queen did not wait for a response, but strode away into the crowd. Soon enough, they were buried by excited parents and cheering onlookers. As soon as Nightingale's parents disappeared, 3 more people hurried over. A stern-looking woman was the first to arrive. She was wearing a formal dress, but a slightly more relaxed smile. Nightingale recognized her as Ida Zhang, Zeke's mother and second only in power to her own Midaran parents. "Balthazar told me how well you scored, and I was pleasantly surprised. Congratulations!" She offered a single delicate hand. Zeke took the offered hand. "Thank you," he replied in an attempt to match his mother's regal etiquette. There was no missing the family resemblance between them. "It was a cooperative effort. My contributions were only a part of our success." "All Alinea knows by now," Ida said a little quieter. "Your success breeds confidence badly needed when the future is so uncertain." She looked up, inclining her head just slightly to Nightingale. "In the life waiting outside these gates, every success belongs to the people. You have given them something to celebrate." Nightingale had a little trouble holding herself as Ida Zhang seemed to expect. That didn't mean she failed to use the proper respect in her tone, however. "It was just the mast. Everyone had to take it, and plenty of students did just as well as us." Ida smiled a little, though there was something indulgent in it. "Perhaps, but it was reassuring evidence that Alinea's ruling families have the strength to lead them through the difficulties we face." Nightingale nearly jumped as Ida abruptly tugged her son close for a hug, despite all the people watching. Nightingale retreated a little, looking away as Ida whispered something into his ear. Zeke smiled, but he didn't manage to say anything before Ida broke apart and vanished into the crowd with a graceful flutter of her gown.
Okay.
Just a few feet away, there was nothing at all of forced dignity in the way Rook's parents embraced him. "Mom, Dad," Rook said as he embraced them. His mother seemed so overwhelmed she could barely speak. "I'm just so proud." "You know who that man was, right?" his father said in awe. "King Balthazar," Rook replied. "Founder and ruler of Alinea." He tried to sound as casual about it as he could, but there was no keeping the smile from his voice. I guess it's pretty amazing. King Balthazar Arson recognizing our son. His mother hugged him again, though not so tight this time. We couldn't be more proud. When she let go, his father patted him on the back. We'll still miss you on the farm, son. But I'm glad you left. You've got more in store for you than weeding and mending fences. Thanks, Dad. Don't need to exaggerate, though. I'm sure it's not... Oh, it is. His mother cut him off. Then she lowered her voice and leaned in close to him. The captain of the King's Guard wanted to have a word with you. Tonight, before the graduation party. Really? Rook tried to hide his smile, but his grin widened despite his efforts. All right. I'll say goodbye to my friends and we can take off. While the others were preoccupied speaking with their parents, Remy was alone, staring awkwardly at the slip of paper with her grade. She shuffled her feet, retreating a step or two every time she thought nobody was looking. Remy's escape was thwarted with an unexpected hug so tight it scrunched her wings and drove the air from her lungs. Hey! Nightingale might be the shorter of the two, but she was heavy enough to make Remy wince. You're coming to the graduation tonight, right? Nightingale let go, flashing her own invitation near Remy's face. Remy tried to swat it away. Where's your dad? Nightingale looked around expecting to see another man with wings meandering about the crowd. He's not coming. Remy thumbed at her math scores. He'd be happy I scored so well, though. Oh, so he doesn't live in the city? That means you're at the dorms by yourself tonight. Nightingale trailed off for a moment. But maybe you'd like to come with me instead. I'm staying with Zeke's family. You could probably hang out with us until the party. Remy glanced briefly back at the Institute and remembered the lonely little dorm room waiting for her inside. Are you sure your parents won't mind if we're hanging out? You saw how they acted when they found out I was on your team during the mast. Yeah, I don't really care about that, Nightingale said dismissively. What good is being a princess if I can't even choose my own friends? So come on! You want to hang out or not? Remy smiled, looking at the invitation. Sure. That sounds nice.
Oh boy. Even more. So we go to the graduation. Well, 13 minutes.
The graduation. Eventually, the sun disappeared from the sky, and Nightingale found herself standing in the largest ballroom in the city of Alinea. Even the large space had trouble containing the graduates and their families. She shifted uncomfortably in her gown, trying to ignore the sheer volume of people watching. Being a princess is way less awesome than it is in the movies, she thought as she forced herself to be polite for each and every trite greeting and congratulations. How many of the complete strangers accosting her were doing the same for the other graduates? Nightingale glanced down at the tables seated in rows on the lower level of the ballroom and couldn't help but wish she was sitting with all the other normal students. They were having a good time with their own families, unbothered by the constant barrage of the pompous elite. The special treatment bothered her, and it looked like Zeke got about as much of it as she did, though he was a little less graceful about accepting it. Just behind her, Remy received only confused or suspicious looks by the other royalty. By now, Nightingale had noticed Balthazar's and Kezia's aversion to the girl, though she didn't know why. Between a break of compliments on her graduation, Nightingale saw a familiar face shift in the crowds nearby. I think I see Rook up there, Nightingale said, pointing. Remy's eyes flickered, following her gesture into the crowd. Follow me! Nightingale grabbed Remy's hand and waded through the well-dressed people of all kinds, passing between tables piled high with dignified hors d'oeuvres and uninteresting drinks. Rook was standing only a few feet from a raised platform in the center, chatting animatedly with a boy with giant wings hanging from his back. Hey! Nightingale waved, hurrying the rest of the way over. I was planning on introducing you guys to Khufu tonight. Looks like you've already met him. Nightingale looked around, searching to see if Rook's parents were somewhere nearby. After the way they had acted, Nightingale was a little surprised they weren't. That meeting Rook's parents mentioned must have gone pretty well if he was talking to Khufu. Nightingale wondered if he might have even been invited to the Demiurge. She could think of no other explanation for why Rook was waiting at the table with the rest of the Demiurge soldiers Balthazar usually retained as his personal guard. If they invited Rook, maybe I've got a chance too, Nightingale thought excitedly. Her tail flicked behind her at the thought. Nightingale suddenly noticed that Remy was ruffling her wings a little. This is your friend from Earth? Remy asked with a smile. Khufu glanced at Nightingale. Are you telling everyone about our high school shenanigans? I thought we agreed that those times were under lock and key. I mean, not everything. Nightingale glanced sideways. Then she looked back at Khufu. How am I not supposed to tell people that I have a friend from Earth here on Middara, though? You didn't tell me he had wings. Remy leaned to inspect Khufu's red, large wings. They're gorgeous. Wing buddies. Khufu held out his hand for a high five. Remy jumped up and smacked it. Nightingale giggled, and then Khufu and Remy looked at her expectantly. Oh, sorry, she squeaked. I guess you meant Rook, but not Remy. Remy, this is Khufu. They exchanged a few pleasantries, though Remy was suddenly bubbling with energy. These look big enough to actually work. They are, Khufu said, ruffling his own wings a little. They've come in handy in a few tight spots, haven't they, Nightingale? That's right. Usually not my fault we needed to be bailed out, though. Nightingale slapped him on the back with a wide grin. Of course not. Khufu lowered his head in a mock deference. A princess of Alinea could make no mistakes. A princess of Alinea also couldn't attend a party, Zeke interjected, popping into the conversation from seemingly nowhere. He looked around with disappointment. Now my uncle, he knows how to throw a real party. Too bad we're too dignified to attend such crass and wasteful gatherings. Nightingale found herself laughing at Zeke's impression of his mother. Nightingale had stumbled into more than one of Ida's lectures during her time living in the Jiang mansion. And although they were always directed at Zeke, she knew that Ida expected just as much from her. Someone tapped her on the shoulder and Nightingale turned, half expecting another total stranger to waste more of her time with empty congratulations. Instead, she found herself facing her sister. Congratulations on graduating, Nightingale! I knew you could do it! Shayless wasted no time pulling her into yet another embrace. Yeah, Nightingale pushed herself free. I had good teachers. Nightingale glanced around, searching the nearby crowd. Hey, have you seen Antoinette? The other Jiangs are here. I was really hoping to say hi. Zeke's sister seemed to be the only one that got out from under the thumb of the politics of her family, and Nightingale had always wanted to ask how she did it. If there was a time she'd be able to have time to chat with her, it'd be now. She isn't here, unfortunately, Shayless answered. Antoinette is off doing her Pirates of the Caribbean thing. Nightingale lowered her voice conspiratorially. Lady Ida snaps at Zeke for using the wrong salad fork, but lets one of her daughters sail off to be a pirate? Privateer, Shayless corrected. She seemed to deflate a little, sighing. And that's... She struggled for a moment, then shrugged. Complicated. I'm sure it is, Nightingale said. I'd love to know her secret. Obstinance, Shayless muttered. Her father was the only one she listened to. With him gone, Ida never figured out how to control her. Luckily, Zeke doesn't give her much trouble. Shayless shot Zeke a look. Yeah, Zeke shrugged. I'd not worry too much about it, Knight. I'd never see her either. God knows I've heard Ida talk enough about her. I probably know her better than Shayless. Well, she has the right idea. I'd love to be a pirate. Nightingale then excitedly turned. Remy! She reached out and grabbed at her new friend's wrist and pulled her forward. My sister Shayless, she said as a crude introduction. I feel like I'm on display, Remy said, exasperated, and then smiled at Shayless. Nice to meet you again, Princess. Remy scratched the back of her head and scrunched her face. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to curtsy or bow or take your hand or... Shayless gave her a long look and then finally smiled. It's okay. Shayless is fine. No need for formalities. I'm guessing Nightingale invited you. Yes, Prince... Shayless, Remy stuttered. I hope that isn't a problem. Yeah, Nightingale said, putting a hand on her hip. I hope it isn't a problem. Shayless's lips curled into a genuine smile that showed her teeth. Of course not. You can hang around whoever you'd like. Unless it's me. Khufu stepped up and lifted Shayless's hand and nodded respectfully. Princess, good to see you again. Khufu, I hope the Jiangs have been utilizing their skills well. Or should I say, your free ticket into the Demiurge. Balthazar didn't want me around his awesome daughter. What can I say? Khufu fist-bumped Nightingale without taking his eyes off Shayless. It's not like they'd go any easier on me. I swear Balthazar is hoping I'd get myself killed. Nightingale nervously laughed. He wouldn't do that. She glanced toward Shayless. Would he? Shayless only smiled. Rook's a lucky man, Khufu said, glancing back towards the towering shape behind him. Rook was deep in conversation with the other Demiurge. Nightingale watched him with envy. So they're going to train him then? Let him in? Nightingale stopped talking as the room around them became suddenly silent at the approach of new arrivals. She didn't even have to look to know who it would be. King Balthazar and her older brother Yol, the heir apparent, entered the ballroom. Yol walked at the lead, his face as sharp as the suit he wore. He barely seemed to slow as he approached them. "Good work, little sister." He didn't wait for her response, continuing on to the table where Queen Kezia was already saving several seats. King Balthazar was the picture of regal bearing, his armor glittering and polished and his beard immaculately trimmed. What he lacked in grace, he made up in confidence, only accentuated by the scars on his face and the streaks of gray in his beard. Balthazar continued to the waiting stage. He stopped there, tapping one finger on the edge of the podium, quieting down the rest of the room before speaking. "We gather here today to celebrate the accomplishments of each and every one of you who've completed the mast. As you leave the Institute and enter Alinea as citizens, carry the lessons you have learned with you. Do not be fooled into thinking that agelessness means immortality, and that the rising generation does not need you. You all are the strength of our great country. It will depend on your contributions in the years and decades ahead." There was polite applause from around the room. Balthazar waited for silence before he continued. "Middara might not be the world you know best, but we hope now we have given you the tools to call it home." Nightingale didn't wait a moment before she had to. As soon as her father stepped down from the platform and the party resumed, she was at his side. He didn't seem surprised, only a little wary. "Yes, Nightingale?" The sound of conversation had picked up all around them, and she made sure to keep her voice quiet enough that it wouldn't carry. She shuffled uneasily from foot to foot, her tail twitching behind her. She spent just a few more seconds getting up the courage. Then it all came tumbling out in a rush. "I'd like to join the Demiurge. I know it's a little strange to have a member of the royal family join the ones who protect them, but Dominic did it before he died, and Khufu will vouch for me, and now that you've let Rook join, we could totally train together." Balthazar silenced her with a raised hand, and the rest of her words petered out like the last drops from a faucet. "I'm sorry, Nightingale. That just isn't possible." He turned away from the table as though to make for one of the doors. She probably should have let him go, but she didn't. Nightingale hadn't fought through 3 hellish days of mass testing just to give up on her dream without a fight. She reached out, catching him by the arm. "Wait!" Several people watching gawked, and nearby conversations fell to a hush. She ignored them all. "Please, Father. I know you're skeptical of anything that might put me in danger, but that's the exact opposite of what this is. You didn't think being better prepared was putting Dominic in danger." Balthazar frowned at the mention of his dead son's name before raising his voice. "Your older brother was twice the warrior you are." Balthazar turned, his expression growing firm. "He had the wisdom and skill of many years before he qualified to join the Demiurge." "But Rook!" "Rook wasn't accepted into Demiurge training." Balthazar's voice raised another few decibels. "I don't know if you remember, but he saved your life from an Earth Loa during the mast when you failed to use the Bellicose Cube in a reasonable amount of time. I made him into your personal knight." "Knight? But—" "You're important to this kingdom, Nightingale," he interrupted. "So important that I felt it necessary to keep you protected at all times. Alinea needs you right where you are." "Well, maybe I don't care." Nightingale ignored the fact that her father towered over her, and that at least a dozen people were staring at them. "My real family didn't love me because I was useful. They loved me because they were my family." Balthazar sighed and forcefully calmed himself before replying. "Your real family is right here, Nightingale. Don't think that a few years on Earth will change an eternity waiting for you here in Alinea. Those years on Earth don't change how much your mother and I care about you." She turned her back on him, tail swishing furiously behind her. "Could have fooled me." She didn't wait for a response, didn't even look at him. Nightingale stalked away, each step angrier than the last as she made her way to her friend's table. By the time she arrived, the party had gotten back into full swing and her friends had all sat down to eat. "Hey, Zeke!" She didn't sit down. Zeke looked up from the table behind a freshly lit cigarette that was hanging out of one corner of his mouth. "Yeah? That uncle of yours, the one that throws the crazy ragers? Yoon?" "Yeah, Yoon." Nightingale leaned closer to him. "Is he doing anything tonight? And could you get us into the party?" "Of course." Zeke briefly glanced around, not seeing any ashtrays, before extinguishing his cigarette against the white tablecloth. "I'm not sure that's wise, Nightingale." Rook spoke from across the table, voice even. "Your family probably expects you to remain here for their party." Nightingale tensed, turning away. She was probably speaking a little too loudly as she replied, "I don't give a damn what they expect right now. You don't get too close either. You're my knight now, aren't you?" Zeke raised an eyebrow at the comment but let it go. All right. Zeke rose from a slouch. I was planning on heading over there when this one got too boring anyway. Rook rose as well, looking down. Guess I'm coming too then. Remy remained where she was, staring at the table. Maybe she expected them to take off, leaving her alone at their table. Instead, Nightingale rested one hand briefly on her shoulder. You coming, Remy? I bet we'll have way more fun at a real party. Yeah. She practically jumped to her feet, a little too quickly. I mean, yes. That sounds fantastic. She straightened, and together they left the graduation party behind.
Boy, boy, boy. A lot of things going on. Alright. Next one. It's the Yoon's party.
Yoon's party. Wow, I forgot how amazing the white spires were. I haven't been here since I came to Middara. Remy could barely find the words as she stared up into the sky, following a dozen different sharp stone lines. They seemed to be made of white granite, placed not according to geometry, but to arcane patterns. You get used to it, Zeke grunted, already smoking. It's not all that great, really. The guards are the worst. Damn portal to Earth means we've got more than almost anywhere else. The place is meant to keep you in just as much as out. The grounds were elegant, white granite surrounded with carefully groomed gardens. Remy could smell the flowers, even if most had closed against the chill. And Yoon's throwing a party here? Nightingale seemed angrier than she had been at the graduation party. In the same place that holds the portal? There was a little reverence in her voice at the last word. Each of them had used that portal, and all of them understood its value. No portal, no kingdom. Yeah, but this place is way bigger than it looks. It's not like he's having the party where the portal is. He gestured down at the ground with his cigarette. The portal would be impossible for us to get anywhere near. Yoon holds his party near the white vaults of Alinea. They say that they go deeper than the spires go high. I don't think anybody knows exactly how far. He stopped for a moment, then grinned. Can you hear the music? Yoon always hires the most popular acts. Remy could hear it, steady bass so loud it came through her feet, accompanied with flashing lights from up ahead. They turned a corner and were suddenly face to face with a pair of surly-looking men on either side of a door. Zeke! They sprang into action, flinging the door open. Lady Nightingale, a pleasure, the guard said as they passed. So, they just let us in? Rook wondered aloud. Lights flashed, music blared, and dancing bodies filled the air with sweat. Where the arson graduation party had tables and a 3-course meal, Yoon had a full-service bar and whole tables packed with drinks. The place resembled a nightclub from Earth more than a formal dinner party in a fantasy world. Nightingale approached the bar and downed a shot of something colorful and glowing. Remy resisted the urge to do the same. If Nightingale reacted to bad news the way some of Remy's Earth friends had, she would probably be grateful for a sober friend in a few hours. The party was every bit as awesome as Zeke had led him to believe. The music was a refreshing throwback to the music from Earth, loud and abrasive. It provided a break from the choral and classical pieces some students had practiced in the Institute, and none of the dancing would have been okay at any school dance she had ever attended. Remy was startled out of her musing by a hand on her shoulder. She jerked away defensively, but it was only Nightingale grinning down at her with glowing blue teeth. Zeke just got word. We're wanted upstairs. Nightingale set her glowing cup on the table, the rest of the liquid sloshing out of it. Smells like more politics. No big deal, Remy replied. Whatever we gotta do, I'm right there with you. As they headed upstairs, Remy saw that Yoon Jong wasn't like the arson family. He didn't put a throne down where he could see the party unfold beneath his watchful eyes. Instead, he chose a table at the very center, where he could participate in the drama as easily as observe. Remy smelled him before she saw him. Like every kind of liquor Earth had ever invented, and many others it hadn't. Yoon separated himself from several attractive groupies, shoving out of the booth, staggering as he rose to his feet. Yoon was taller than Zeke, and wore an open jacket over a lean, muscled chest. His hair was styled, his face clean-shaven, and crystal jewelry glowed faintly around his neck. Nephew, Yoon smiled, opening his arms wide. I didn't expect you tonight. Institute graduation wasn't good enough? Zeke nodded. No one in Middara can throw a party like you. Truer words were never spoken. Your friends look lovely. He waved a hand with several glittering rings toward them, though he hardly seemed to see anyone besides Zeke. I wanted to acknowledge your presence before getting back to my proclivities. You kids enjoy yourselves. I would stay, but... He sighed. I'm needed elsewhere. Zeke didn't say anything until Yoon had walked off, heading towards a nearby doorway. That's weird. I don't think I've ever seen Yoon care about something more than his parties. He's been trying to get me to come party with him ever since I got here. But now that we're all here? He shrugged. Remy wasn't sure where the impulse came from. She kept her voice as quiet as possible. As quiet as she could and not be completely drowned in the music anyway. I could follow him. She didn't expect anyone to agree, and quickly felt silly for speaking up. Suddenly, though, Zeke nodded. Could you do it without getting caught? If Yoon's got himself into trouble again, well, the rest of the family should know. No problem. Remy cracked her knuckles. I'll be right back. Remy vanished into the party. She slumped her shoulders and tucked her wings in as she moved with the crowd. With so many flashing lights and so many people, it wasn't hard to disappear. She made it to the open doorway and strode in as though she knew exactly where she was going. Remy had not come to Middara to a kind family as Rook had done. She hadn't even come back to well-meaning but callous-seeming nobility as Zeke and Nightingale had. Remy's father loved her all right, and had taught her what he believed were the necessary skills to survive. Sometimes that meant hiding in plain sight. Despite the security of the white vaults beneath, the halls around Yoon's party were deserted. Remy hurried after the sound of repeating footfalls as quietly as possible. She memorized the hallways as she went, making a mental note of each twist. Soon enough, the footsteps stopped. Remy stopped too, straining her ears. It took her a few seconds of concentration before she could make the voices out. You're sure? Yoon's voice was quiet. Absolutely. The second speaker was female, far brusquer. We don't know how far he could have gotten by now. You're positive someone didn't just forget to shut the door? Unfortunately. There was a hint of disgust in the woman's voice. We don't make mistakes like that, sir. What do we do about it? Yoon's voice was a little louder, echoing through the halls. Remy took a minute to listen for any other noises, such as someone else coming from her direction. She didn't hear any yet, though. Should we send down a patrol or something? Maybe call the demiurge up? Yoon sounded increasingly frustrated. No, sir. I suggest you strengthen the guard on every known exit. In the unlikely event he can find his way out, it will be into a waiting squadron of the guard. Yoon grumbled angrily. You called me away from an important gathering to tell me that we don't have to do anything? His voice rose again, though Remy doubted it would carry into the party. All right, Captain. Keep on doing the job my family pays you for. The sound of footsteps resumed, much louder than before and heading her way. Remy made her way back to the party in a hurry. She found Zeke first and let him do the work of gathering everybody up. Nightingale in particular seemed a bit remiss to leave the dance floor, but eventually she caved. No sooner had she been told what they'd learned than she started to smile. You know what this means, right? Nightingale grinned. Rook groaned. Please don't. Nightingale ignored him. If there's some sort of thief down in the White Vaults, that means somebody should go in after them. Somebody like us. Rook looked down with folded arms. That sounds stupid. You mean awesome, Nightingale laughed, nudging Rook in the ribs. He didn't react. Admit it, you want to go down there and do some real adventuring. Rook reluctantly nodded. I do want to go. It just seems like a knight-errant should discourage his princess from making risky moves. Nightingale rolled her eyes, turning on Zeke. What about you? You know what's going to happen to us. When tonight's over, it might be years before our parents let us out from under their thumbs. Give it a few decades and you might be married off to some cream puff to cement a stupid political alliance or whatever. She rested one hand on his shoulder, smiling at him with her huge green eyes. With the lights flashing all around them, they practically glowed. You don't want that shit, Zeke. You want to live. She gestured down the hallway Remy had come from with a wild smile on her face. Let's go catch us a thief. See the white vaults of Alinea for ourselves. Actually do something. Sure. Zeke fished around, digging out one of the last of his cigarettes. Sounds like fun. Nightingale opened her mouth to argue, then shut it as she realized he agreed. Then she turned to Remy. You in? Obviously, Remy grinned back. The stories of what's down there? I wonder if the rumors are true. Zeke cracked his knuckles. All right, follow me. This place is a vault, but I think I might know a way in.
Okay. We're very close. Okay, alright. So, dangerous path. Okay. So, we do dungeon delving and that'll be it. Yeah.
Dungeon delving. I'm pretty sure the secret door is this way. Zeke peeked inside, opening it only a crack. That's what you said 3 doors ago. Nightingale crowded close to him, looking under his arm and shoving a glowstone through the opening. Zeke knows where he's going, Rook rumbled from somewhere behind. He's using an exhaustive elimination system, like the way we've been ignoring all the doors marked vault entrance, staff only. Zeke managed to resist the urge to try and kick his friend. Those signs are for idiots who break into the vaults we want to get killed. Lots of them had guards too, Remy offered matter-of-factly. Zeke probably doesn't want anyone knowing where we went. You're damn right. Zeke kept his voice low, squinting through the dark with only Nightingale's glowstone to light the space for him. There are more ways in, though. The safe ones aren't marked, and the ones that can't be used to get out won't be guarded. He pulled back, glancing one last time around the hall to make sure nobody was watching them. When he didn't see anyone, Zeke put himself in front of the door, turning to face them. Antoinette took me down this way once. I have to warn you, though, it's real steep. When you start sliding, get onto your back and don't lift your head. He waited for verbal acknowledgement from each of his friends before pushing the door open. The chamber beyond was exactly as he remembered it, about 20 square feet, with worn carvings on all the walls and empty torch brackets rusting away. It would have been entirely unremarkable were it not for the dramatic slope almost the instant they stepped inside. The floor was made of dark gray stone that was worn smooth by the passage of those before them. The ground dropped so dramatically that the glowstones they held couldn't eliminate where the opening went. It was a steep slide with a ceiling too low for even someone like Remy to fly back up. Last chance to back out, Zeke gestured at the slide. We'll have to find another way up. And remember, even the upper parts of the vaults aren't completely safe. Nightingale took a step into the room, sliding one of her flats along the slick rock. She jumped as the slick rock almost stole her balance. Zeke rushed to steady her, but there was no need. Nightingale caught herself glaring at the floor. I'm going! That means I am too, Rook added, assuming you think I can fit. You can, Zeke shrugged one shoulder. We don't know what this thing was used for, but it's gigantic. Unsurprisingly, it was Nightingale who moved past him first. All right, Rimdog, Zekerino, and Rook, let's go! She lowered herself down as the drop became dramatic, then finished with a squeal into the darkness. I'm coming! Remy needed no more encouragement, leaping feet first into the slick stone after Nightingale. Rook followed, though more carefully, lowering himself down on the flat part of the room, then pushing off. See you down there, Zekerino. Zeke nodded. It wasn't the first time Nightingale had called him. He didn't give himself time to contemplate the trip. He just stepped out into the room and shoved towards the drop. Air whipped his hair about as he slid, gathering grime and dirt along the way. True to his advice, the ceiling blurred as he flew by, dangerously close to his face. After what felt like several minutes in darkness, Zeke saw the first flickers of light. The top of the chute opened as it descended, revealing an uneven cave ceiling of stalactites and rough stone. The rock itself seemed alight, flickering with 1,000 different colors. He could just pick out the shapes of glittering geodes set into the ceiling above him. His family still didn't know what magic powered the lights, but they seemed to change every time he looked away. They were a quiet reminder that his family might occupy the white spires, but they didn't understand them. Zeke could hear his friends' voices echoing nearby. Even as the chute opened out and became flat, he dug his heels sharply into the sides of the shaft, bracing himself with his arms so he wouldn't go flying. Instead of slamming into his friends, he came to a reasonably graceful stop. Other than Nightingale's once beautiful dress, they'd made it down without any casualties. Is everyone all right? He asked, getting to his feet and brushing the worst of the slime away. Give me a sec. Nightingale tore at her dress, expanding the rip until it started to spread. Zeke felt his face go red and turned away, grateful for the comparative darkness. He walked past Nightingale as she finished transforming her priceless gown into a makeshift skirt. He squinted against the gloom, trying to remember what he'd been taught about navigating the vaults. He didn't remember much, aside from what Antoinette had told him. His sister had mentioned that there were many places that were considered far too dangerous to go, and others that were much less dangerous. The deeper you go, the more dangerous it gets. He at least remembered something she had told him. I'm not sure where the thief would have gone. Probably down, though. The best chance of finding something valuable to steal is always down. Rook grunted. You sure we can handle the monsters down here? He was already armed, glaring off into the gloom of a nearby carved stone archway. Probably. Zeke didn't sound confident. Not even my father saw the bottom of this place before he died. The Zhang family keeps guards down here for a reason. I hear something coming. Rook's voice was flat. Get ready. Nightingale was beside him suddenly, bearing her steel at the dark. After tonight, anything that comes for me is dead. Then she scoffed and smiled. Not ready for the demiurge, my ass.
Alright. Finally, it's over. We go to a dangerous path, which we'll set up next time. So yeah, I hope that is as long as the stories get, but whew, almost an hour. I hope it came out decently okay. The main focus was getting the characters ready and prepared. Alright, so we're ending it here, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.